All right, what's good, everybody? So after E3, right? After ESBC made its big like showcase at E3 or 2 minute showcase at E3, I started thinking about it and I was like, man, this will probably be a pretty good time with all the extra eyes that, you know what I'm saying, that may be on the game now. I thought that it might actually be a good time to kind of do another one of those, like where the game like started and where it's at now. I also think it's a good time to do it because it's getting to a point, man, where you can really kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. That the game, but it is getting like at a crossroads almost at the same time, where it's looking split. We know that the game is probably coming out sometime in, or we've been told that early access is coming out sometime in the summer, which really means like sometime possibly in September. That's the end of summer. But at the same time, this game has come really far, yo, like really far. And there's been a lot going on. Now, I understand coming off of the June update, some people are kind of like where are we going at this point? But I don't think we should ever forget where we came from. So stick around because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look back basically at the where we started, what things were promised early on, what the original roadmap looked like, and elaborate on what we got, maybe things that we haven't gotten yet, and what extras we ended up getting while this game was still developing. So look, stick around because it's about to be a lot of good information. All right, so anybody who has been following my channel for a while, y'all know, man, that I'm a ESBC content creating OG. Dog, like I've been around for a while. Like I honestly think that I'm like one of the first ones, if not the first one, man, to start like making videos for it. Y'all can fact check me. I'm sure there might be somebody out there who's got like a video prior to my first one. I don't think so though, but so y'all about to get all this information from like classic, dog. So where do we start, right? I can tell y'all where I started and where the game started. So I caught ESBC at about, let me see, March of 2019. No, March of 2020. That was where I originally caught ESBC. All right, and that's where we're going to start. Now, mind you, ESBC had already been in creation and in the works since 2019. Now, the original trailer that had come out for eSports Boxing Club was nothing, and I mean nothing, like what we actually have now. And I mean, when I say that there was a huge difference from then till now, I mean, there was an enormous difference from what it was before. But I also want to point out that pay attention to who have all signed on to the game from that point. Now, mind you, there weren't many names that were signed on to it, but at the same time, the roster was actually relatively small because during this time, the team was extremely small and you really only had heard about 2 people around this time frame. All right. So that is where, at least for me, where everything started. And again, by that time that we saw that trailer, the game had really only been, as far as we knew, in production for 1 year. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward to about from March, April to about June of 2020. Now, this is where we actually got like our first like real glimpse of what you could consider like a roadmap for what Esports Boxing Club was looking to become. All right. Also, we ended up finding out that Esports Boxing Club and Steel City had linked up with the team 1024. Now, if y'all don't know who 1024 is, man, what they made the game Death Stranding, which at the time that Death Stranding came out, it literally had some of the best graphics that you could find out on the market at the time. So when I heard that news, man, that they had linked up with them, I was completely blown away because I knew what 1024 could produce. So at this point, you could see that the game was really starting to like pick up pace, because now you have the WBC, the IBF, Ring Magazine titles have all got online. The roster was starting to get better. And then we really got the things that they said that they were going to bring to the table with this game, for the things that we were going to start to experience when ESBC dropped. They had the Your Journey with, they gave the description of how your career could go. And let me elaborate. All right, so in this portion of like the roadmap, the early roadmap, the Your Journey, they talked about to create your fighter, with offers you will accept, contracts you'll take. This stuff was basically talked about during the alpha gameplay features trailer. So they had basically addressed just about everything there. Now, when they talked about a true boxing RPG experience, over a dozen attributes for every fighter, things like that. So we haven't actually got like an in-depth like breakdown for like character attributes yet, but they did allude to it during that very same trailer. And they've done interviews with certain fighters, and it was kind of like a prediction thing about how how do you feel like your ratings are going to be in the game. So they did address it a little bit, but I think there's still like a little bit more of a breakdown that's required there. But then you had stuff like, you know, the make your own choices, hire your own staff, cut men, that type of stuff. The only thing I think out of there that they hadn't actually given us yet is like the nutritionist. But in that very same video, again, they went over what it's like doing contracts and hiring your own coaches, how your coaches actually affect your actual gameplay. So the licensed roster, we know, has grown to an enormous size since this point in the game's like early life cycle. The WBC and Ring Magazine tournaments. Now, this was one that I really wanted to touch on because we still have no idea as of yet how tournaments are actually going to operate in ESBC. All right. And I am waiting. I am so waiting to hear about that. But this was around the time when we heard that you could actually get like a real belt. But they did address the belt situation because they put out the first images of what the actual winning WBC belt could possibly look like by the time that it actually comes to fruition. So they have addressed that to some degree. Hardcore mode for dedicated gamers. We don't know what a hardcore mode or anything like that, but I would hope that that's something that they address when they start talking about like the career mode and all of that type of stuff in a video, hopefully coming soon. The club, we don't know. No, I have no idea as of yet what the club actually is. If it's something that's going to continue coming, or if it was just an idea that was tossed out before. But I don't know about a club. We haven't seen anything since actually this was originally posted. And then the licensed soundtrack. So they did tease that there were a couple of artists who were actually going to already be signed to make music for the game. So with that being said, these things were talked about all the way back in June of 2020. All right. Then all of a sudden we get the Johnny Nelson trailer. Now this is still all in June of 2020. All right. Dude, the Johnny Nelson trailer was like, that was really, man, it's even hard to kind of explain because things really took off after the Johnny Nelson trailer. So that was the first time that we got to see what 1024 had helped to reshape what eSports Boxing Club is, basically what we know it today. We saw new graphics. We saw like, man, we just saw like a freaking metamorphosis of like changes from the very first trailer that y'all looked at in the beginning of this video. So that is when it started getting like super hype, because that was the first time that right after that everybody really started getting that real hunger for gameplay. We really wanted to see what was this game going to look like after looking at that. And mind you, they said that everything that we saw in that Johnny Nelson trailer was from in-game footage. It wasn't like some CG like movie. Now, you start looking at July of 2020. During that time, Steel City was telling us about, you get to see, they putting out little videos about like what the scanning system looked like over at the 1024 studios, the 170 cameras that they had, at 360, pictures that they were taking. And you kind of got to see a little bit behind the scenes what it took to actually bring these fighters from, to life inside of the game. And then August hits, and that's when this stuff takes off yet again, because in August you had the WBC's 58th annual convention, where two of the members from Steel City Interactive behind the game were there actually doing an interview with Cynthia Conte. And during this time, man, this was huge. The WBC 58th annual convention was huge because typically they would do this stuff, had it not been for COVID-19, this stuff would have been done like in person, right? And dude, the fact that, and listen, everybody was not able to be a part of this, all right? There were individuals who were sent emails and stuff like that who got invited to the 58th annual convention. So myself and a few other like big time like content creators at the time, I literally had to be the smallest one at the time. So it was such a it was such a great opportunity to get invited to take part in the 58th annual convention, even though all of this was done virtually. But the amount of information that got dropped during that was enormous, because they talked about the physical belts. They talked about the original early access plans. They talked about PC releases. They talked about console releases, game modes that were supposed to have been dropping in like Q1 or Q2 of 2021. 100 licenses that they had at that time in August of 2020. 100 licenses that were in discussion during that time. So there was a lot of wheels and there were a lot of things that was moving, but they also dropped the alpha first look trailer because everybody wanted to see what this game looked like in motion. That was the first trailer that we saw that was close to gameplay. And to this day, it was hype, because to this day it's still the most watched video that I have on my channel with 16,000 views. It was such a hype time. There was so much information that was coming at us between, almost every month. But June, July, and August, they let it all go. But they brought up the tournaments. They talked about the physical belts, all of that type of stuff, man. And it was amazing, amazing news. All right, now jump to September. September, Conor Benn gets added to the game. Well, he gets scanned. Let's put it like that. Now, I mention this specifically because I want everybody to see the time difference from when we found out that Conor actually got scanned into the game and when we saw our first images. So Conor Benn is scanned into the game in September. We actually get our first images of Conor Benn in October, and they looked amazing. He's in the ring with Ricky Hatton. Now, what we really got from that was that in a window of about 3 weeks time, now not saying that it takes 3 weeks, but in a window of about 3 weeks time, you had a fighter who got scanned and then was already in the game, what almost looked like completely polished, because November shows up and Conor looks like this. But then in the same month, we got, oh my God, it was like the mother load right then. We ended up getting the alpha footwork trailer. Now, The Alpha Movement trailer had like, it had a little bit of like everything. You really got to see the fighters on display. And it was the first trailer that we had seen since the WBC convention, since the 58th annual convention. And I mean, when I say it was just a hype time, I mean, dude, you had people like Marshall Mine making comments under the video. Shout outs to him. It was so much that was going on during that time. There was tons of content that was floating around. Content creators are now coming out of everywhere. It's no longer myself and like the other like big three. Like it was content creators like everywhere, but it was great because it was good for the game. The community was blowing up. We all knew that there was so much more on the horizon. We knew then that this was not going to be Fight Night Champ. We knew before that this wasn't going to be another Fight Night. But that movement that we saw during this trailer, that solidified it for everywhere. That this was not something to be compared to Fight Night Champion. That Esports Boxing Club was coming to make something brand new. All right, so November kind of stays on a high note, right? We find out that Ty Grisham is coming online. We see the Joe Joyce get scanned. We see his in-game renders, and my God, dude, I even did a video of a side-by-side picture of Joe Joyce and his like in-game renders, and man, did it look really, really, really close to what he actually looks like in real life. It was amazing the amount of work that they were actually doing and how they were coming so close to what people actually look like in the game, man. And it was just, again, it was a crazy time, man. Like November had so much stuff that was coming down. December rolls around and we finally get our first bit of doom and gloom, and the developers put out their notes for the month of December, and they let everybody know that the game is being delayed.